Hello, everybody. So today I want to talk about 6 direct-to-consumer brands and their valuations and which of these brands I like the best. As always, if you just want to see the spreadsheet, feel free to take a screenshot if you're familiar with my spreadsheet. But otherwise, I have a commentary about all of this and about which stocks I like the most, etc., etc. But before I do, let me tell you a little bit about why I grouped these stocks together. Because these stocks to me are all direct-to-consumer stocks, direct-to-consumer brands, DTC brands. And why do I like those a lot? Well, it's important to realize that a lot of the old brands, the legacy brands, they're entrenched. They're entrenched with their partnerships, with their distributors. They're too linked to their distributors and they're too stuck in the way they do things with their distributors that much of their sales are funneled through the distributor system. And there's a lot of rules that apply as to competing against your distributor. For example, if you're Nike, it's not like you can freely undercut Foot Locker and freely compete aggressively against Foot Locker and take all of the business by going direct to consumer. Same if you're a cosmetics brand. As you know, I'll be talking about Oddity and Il Maquillage. If you're L'Oreal, it's not like you can just undercut the Sephora's, the Macy's of the world, and you just can go online all out on Instagram and just sell direct to women who want makeup. You can't really do that without jeopardizing your relationship with your distributor. It's very, very tough for a lot of these old brands, these legacy brands, to jeopardize their relationship with your distributor in order for them to go sell online. Because what these brands need to do is they need to cut out the distributor entirely. The distributor needs gone. It's not needed anymore these days. Everything is direct to consumer. These companies are doing vertical integration. They're doing forward vertical integration. That's what they need to be doing. They can't always do that. And therefore, they are limited because they don't want to disrupt themselves. They don't want to go through cutting off the ties with a distributor in order to go straight online. This is the same story as, say, Ford trying to get rid of the dealership and sell the Ford cars on their own without the dealership, right? You have all of this network of sellers that you need to sustain when you're a brand. And new brands, they go from distributor stores to company-owned showrooms if you are a DTC brand. If you're a DTC brand, you're not using a distributor anymore. You're going to have mostly a website. Most of your sales are going to go through the website. And sometimes you're going to have a showroom, a company-owned showroom in, say, the most fancy mall in the town or the most fancy store in the town. But typically, showrooms are very, very small, these showrooms. And, oftentimes, if you order in a showroom, you still have to wait to get it delivered to your house. They still ship it to your house. Oftentimes, if you want to order in a showroom, they just give you an iPad and it's just the internet and you order it online, right? So we move also to a world where if these brands are a physical presence, it's only going to be a showroom and it's going to be in the biggest town, in the best part of town, and you just try out the product, and then once you're home far away, you just try out the product once and you just buy it online. Most people buy it online. Legacy brands, in my view, those who rely heavily on distributors, they are in trouble because most younger consumer will inevitably want to buy everything online. Do you remember 20 years ago, people used to say, there's no way I'm buying clothes on Amazon online. There's no way I'm buying clothes online. I can't try out the clothes. Today, buying clothes online is a cultural trend. It's almost a standard. It's a habit. Right? Plenty of people buy clothes online. They get like 1 or 2 pieces or 1 or 2 sizes delivered and they just send it back, or they just keep something, get charged and send it back. It's so common to buy clothes online today. Back then, everybody said, there's no way it's going to happen. Well, I believe this is going to go the same way for a lot of consumer brands. People are going to have no issue going online and buying online. The 2 questions that I have to ask here is, A, is the consumer going to be willing to pay extra to have physical stores? Is it worth paying 2 times, say, the cost of the product to have physical store? Because you got to maintain these stores, pay the taxes, pay the insurance. Is the consumer going to be willing to pay for physical store, or is the consumer just going to switch to a new brand a better brand, right? A better value brand that is only online and that doesn't have a network of stores. And even worse than that, right? Even or better, depending on your situation, is actually the younger consumer, the youngest consumer, actually gonna expect even a discount for just having to take their car or the bus or Uber or whatever and go in and having to talk to people? Is this gonna be something even where people expect a discount because, oh my gosh, you have to actually go in and talk to people, which if you talk to anybody under 20 right now, it sure feels that way. And so digital brands will inevitably, in my view, have a better value for the money, a best value for the money. Now, value is an interesting term, right? A value could be a product of similar quality at a much lower cost, which DTC can do, or it could be, and it's more often the case, a product at a similar cost of a much higher quality, right? And so that's oftentimes the second option that brands choose, right? Brands always claim they're the best, but nonetheless, the consumer feels that quality, and that some of that extra value created from eliminating the distributor, eliminating this network of store, right? We'll talk about HIMS in a sec. HIMS has 45,000 pharmacies that we're sustaining. Do we really need that? I don't think we do. And thus, that's why they're able to charge so little, right? If we get rid of this network of stores, then that means that there will be a major success over the long run, in my view, for these new brands, these new direct-to-consumer brands. And they have to be new brands because the old brands often suffer from the innovator's dilemma. They often suffer from not being able to kill the current cash cow, get rid of the current cash cow to go into the new world. They are having a hard time. And we are seeing this whenever we see a distributor report. We are seeing the stocks very often decline, right? This was Foot Locker 4 days ago, down 30%, right? 32% was down. It was down way more intraday. Like intraday, the stock was down more than 40%, right? This was the story of a stock like Bed Bath & Beyond, if you remember, right? We're just these brands, these as seen on TV brands, just went direct to consumers, and they stopped just needing a distributor. You don't need a distributor if you're as seen on TV brand, and you just go DTC, full direct to consumer, not having to pay to sustain a physical store. And not to mention all of the advantages of selling online. Another one is you can order at any time of the day. I remember a time in the US when stores opened much later than they do today. Distributors have gotten lazy. They don't open as often as the internet. The internet is always open. You can always order something online because you're just dealing with a machine. You're not dealing with complex HR. So that's why I think DTCs are going to win. And that's why I think they're a great thing to look at. So what you're all waiting for, I'm sure, is the valuation. So let me get into the valuation. So you'll see in this spreadsheet, there are about 3 stocks that I like very much and 3 of them that I don't like as much. So, let's get started with ON. So ON Holdings. So if I look at ON Holdings, it's a 0.18, so that's pretty cheap. That's top, top 20% cheap in my spreadsheet. What I like about ON Holdings is that we are predicted to grow 51%. Now, what is ON? This is the logo right here. ON is running shoes. They are modern day running shoes. The stock has actually been doing very, very well, and I haven't gotten it yet. I have to get in. I have to get into that stock. It seems to be very popular, especially in big cities. People seem to love the brand, and ON Holdings is actually already EBITDA margin profitable at 11%. They achieve a rule of 62. Note how it is the highest in this spreadsheet. That's the highest rule of 62. That's because we're still predicted to grow quite a bit, 51%. And on my metric, it's cheap. So ON Holdings is actually very interesting, and I find this stock compelling. I'm actually interested in purchasing this stock and looking at this stock. Now, moving on to a stock that I would not be interested in is HOKA, which is Deckers Outdoors is the name of the company that does that. And you can see that the revenue growth of HOKA, in my view, is not that satisfactory. It's not a great revenue growth at 14%. It seems like the fresher, younger running shoe brand is doing better than a Hoka, and Hoka is actually still somewhat of a legacy brand. Like, it's got a lot of distribution going for this brand. If you look at Hoka, as far as my enterprise value over revenue growth, over gross profit over revenue growth, which is my metric where I ask how much am I paying for each percentage point of growth, it's a 0.7. That's actually more expensive than the average stock in the spreadsheet. Now, of course, when a company grows slowly or slower and it's bigger and it's more mature, you get the benefit of having margin and making money, right? EBITDA margin at 23%. This firm is economically profitable, but I wouldn't be as interested. And I think it's interesting to look at it back to back, right? On Holdings, in my view, much cheaper, much more growth coming up than Hoka. And they're obviously direct competitors. Hoka and On Holdings are direct competitors. Moving on to a stock that I like, which is Lovesac. So Lovesac is actually a furniture store, and of course, the Fed has not dropped interest rate, and so the market is still in this mode of thinking, oh, people are never gonna buy furniture again, and the algos are entirely ignoring this stock. Lovesac, they make bean bags, they make kind of recliner 2.0. They have reconfigurable furniture sectionals. Anyways, the product is not as relevant as the valuation on this one. I think the valuation is particularly compelling at a 0.08. So as cheap as HIMS once was. HIMS was once that cheap. They are EBITDA margin profitable. And of course, if one were to buy a stock like Love, that would be because you're betting that real estate comes back. And when real estate comes back, that's when a lot of people are going to buy expensive furniture. And it is a much more efficient company in the furniture space than I think a lot of other possible furniture plays. Now, moving on to a stock that would not interest me anymore is FIGS. FIGS used to be growing much more. When I started covering FIGS in the early days of the channel, the growth was much better. But it seems that like the growth 3%, I mean, this is a stock that is still growing at the rate of the economy. I don't understand, especially with the demographic trend in healthcare. I don't understand why this company is still growing at the rate of the economy. It's disappointing growth. And by the way, that 3%, usually I take these numbers from Seeking Alpha. This is from Seeking Alpha too. But when you look at the transcripts from their call 10 days ago, in late February, they had their Q1. That's what they are predicting, from 0 to 5% forward revenue growth over the next 12 months is what they're predicting, 0 to 5%. So 3% is right in the middle. That's not very good, right? That's growing at the rate of the economy. And so in that case, the stock is fairly expensive because you're expecting no growth in the stock and you only have a 12% EBITDA margin. And you're very far from a rule of 40 at a rule of 15 because no growth is there. So, FIGS is kind of one of these parking money type stock where you could park your money on it, hoping that maybe one day the growth rebounds. But for now, the growth on this one is largely gone. And this is, of course, a fallen hero from the events of 2020 where they were very successful because a lot of people bought scrubs. And FIGS, by the way, if you don't know, FIGS is a seller of scrubs. They are trying to make scrubs the next big thing. They're trying to make scrubs fashionable, like yoga were once just something for the gym and they became a fashionable item. They're doing the same thing at FIGS. The jury's still out as to whether they will make it or not. Now, moving on to the last two stocks, which are stocks that I really like. So one of them is Oddity. So Oddity is in the women's space. It's a makeup company, more specifically foundation. The name of the brand is called Il Maquillage, and they're a brand that's heavily present on social media, TikTok, Instagram, and Odd is a company that leverages AI to create better customized product. And of course, HIMS does the same thing to a lesser extent. Odd as a vision technology. So it deals with foundation. So foundation is, of course, something women put on their skin to make the skin more makeup-ishy, I suppose. But what the problem with foundation is when you choose the color of a product, it has to be the color of your skin. And old brands usually have a number, and you'll have a number, and you're left wondering at a store which color is closer to your skin. Oddity, for their brand Il Maquillage, doesn't do it like that, right? They scan your face. The software scans your face, and they use AI to make a foundation that is exactly the color of your skin. And obviously, there's probably millions of nuances of skin color. It's not that easy. It's not that easy to find the right color in this foundation space. And because of that, they have a recurring revenue model, because of course it doesn't work for everybody, but when it works, customers are very happy because they finally found the product that exactly matches them, and they keep buying it, and so you have this recurring revenue model. And Oddity has another brand called Spoiled Child, which is for skincare, and they have 2 brands coming up that use this AI technology in order to create a customized product that people can't refuse. And this company is predicted to grow 32%. Noteworthy to note that this company has not run yet because they, quote unquote, disappointed the market with their growth guidance. I'm not going to lie, I was disappointed too. But of course, if you follow the analyst number, which are way down, by the way, analysts are still saying Odd is sandbagging. Odd guided 24% revenue growth next 12 months, which is not very high. Analysts are saying, along with me, that they are sandbagging, and analysts are saying as a whole that this is a company that's going to grow 32% in 2024, full year 2024, 32%. So with a 32%, 70% gross margin, you're still getting top tier cheapest company at a 0.21. This is a dirt cheap company, and this is profitable for a new stock like this. This is highly profitable at 16% EBITDA margin. And the exponentiality of Oddity, of course, is that much of that growth is kind of assumed to be for their 2 existing brands, and I mean mostly the one, which is Il Maquillage, but they have 2 more brands coming, and so a lot of people are excited about that, and so am I. And the last stock, which needs no introduction if you're a viewer of the channel. I started covering this stock at $6 more than a year and a half ago, and then it fell down to 5-ish, and I kept covering it, and I covered it at 10 and at 9, and I keep calling it cheap. And yeah, it is still dirt cheap. Despite the run, I'm up 100% on the stock, but despite that run, it is still very cheap at a 0.1, at a 0.1 on the enterprise value over gross profit over revenue growth. My spin of the peg ratio, I consider a stock cheap when it's under a 0.5. Right, a 0.1 is 5 times cheaper than what I consider cheap. It's still a cheap stock. The company, the growth is not slowing down. It's still growing very fast. Analysts are predicting 41% growth. They're going to achieve their long-term guidance about a year early. This is a company whose target is 25% EBITDA, right? In a couple years, when they achieve that 25% EBITDA, they have 90+% recurring revenue. It's HIMS. So HIMS, in a nutshell, what is HIMS? HIMS is an e-doctor, digital doctor, an e-pharmacy without insurance, but together. And because you don't use insurance, you can move very fast, and you can have very transparent pricing, and people know right away how much they're getting charged. They're not left wondering what the bill is going to be. And that was HIMS. That's what HIMS is all about. Of course, I've covered HIMS multiple times on the channel, and feel free to go look at the many. I must have well over 24 videos of HIMS by now. HIMS is, of course, out of all these companies, HIMS is my highest conviction direct-to-consumer brand. They are going after the disruption of, mostly pharmacies, and the $45,000 pharmacies, but also as health systems, hospitals, doctors, they make the switch, right? A provider has the choice of where they work, and oftentimes it's a good gig job for them to simply decide to go work for a platform like HIMS and Teladoc, freelancers instead of working for a health system, and that's what a lot of them choose to do. And HIMS includes that doctor consult in a single, easy monthly price, and HIMS is very successful right now. So I'm very happy to own that stock too. So these were all my direct consumer to consumer, my DTC brands. This was not investment advice, not financial advice. I'm just telling you, what I like to entertain you. That's all I'm doing. No financial advice. Please please subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.